Erin here, and I'm going to try to keep this intro real short and sweet because I feel like we really get straight into it on this podcast. But joining me today is a friend, a client. Her name is Laura, and Laura is also a coach, a hypnotherapist. She's studying to be a psychotherapist at the moment, and she's a 2-4 emotional manifesting generator. And her story is one that so many people can relate with because it's that classic scenario of following a certain path because it is the one that is going to bring the financial stability, or it's the one that's expected of you, or it's just that path that you think that you're supposed to be walking. And on you look around and on paper you have a lot of the things that you're supposed to want, but you feel like something is missing inside of you. And for Laura, that was a lot around giving herself permission to be multi-passionate, for trying a lot of different things, for letting go of that path that she was walking and jump over to a new path. And so much has happened for her in the last few years since she started to let go and trust in her mechanics. And she shares a lot of incredible practices, some things that help her in terms of grounding and staying connected to her intuition and understanding just what alignment feels like in her body versus what resistance feels like in her body. And then how she uses practices like journaling, like hypnotherapy to help rewrite old narratives, to help keep her connected to her source, to her self. And we also share a little exciting announcement at the end, about a little collaboration that we're working on. So I'm going to let you guys get straight into this. I also am going to apologize in advance because I don't know what was happening with my microphone or if it just wasn't connected, but not the best audio. So sorry. Love you guys. See you on the other side.
Oh my gosh, I woke up at 2:30 in the morning with a headache, which like I get headaches and I I'm kind of that's like the one thing that I'm kind of a wimp about. For some reason, like having a headache feels like the most obtrusive thing. As someone who's also very like holistic and never really takes medicine or anything like that, it's like the minute I get a headache, I'm like, okay, fine, give me the Panadol, give me the ibuprofen. Like, what do I need?
I remember last time we spoke, I think you didn't sleep, no? That night.
Yeah, thank God that was like maybe a 2 or 3 week struggle, but my sleep has started coming back. And even last night, I had the headache, and then I just drank a lot of water and was able to fall back to sleep. Thank God. But sometimes then you just wake up and you're a little bit just like disheveled.
Do you know though, like where it comes from? Do you connect some dots afterwards, or it's just random?
It's been so destabilizing because there hasn't been a clear like thread, like through point with it, because it's something I've struggled with. I never had sleep issues. And then about a year ago, it kind of started, and it like started like really intense, really strong for just these like periods of time. And then it'll just, one day my sleep will come back. And the only sort of, like patterns that I can trace are my environment. I was in an environment that's not aligned for me, which unfortunately this is becoming more and more misaligned. And there's just like nothing I can really do about it.
Okay, so you know that you're kind of living in the wrong place, or yeah, okay.
Yeah.
No windows, or what is it for you? There should be a window.
Sure. So like windows, which is great in this room. That's the thing is, this house is a shore for me, or it's like I find my shore within this house. But in the greater span of the environment, it's a very metropolitan area. It's very, like, I feel very claustrophobic. I'm in this kind of like gated community. I can't see, all the houses are kind of just like on top of each other. I have no breathing room. Like going out for a walk is just, I can do the same lap around the same loop in this like very residential area, but I feel so smothered in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. It's so interesting to see because you've lived in a lot of different areas or like places, no, over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And was there one that stood out as like the environment that feels really fitting?
I've had a couple. The first, yeah, so there's probably two that I can go back to. The first one was during COVID when I was living in Sri Lanka. And Sri Lanka is like a seasonal island. So 6 months of the year, especially if you're there for surf, more or less, 6 months of the year, you're on the south coast of the island. And then it turns into kind of like monsoon season down there. And then you go to the east side of the island. And the east side of the island is still like crazy remote. This is where you'll be surfing and elephants will walk across the beach at 6 a.m. or something. Like it's so wild, so remote. There's nowhere else in the world like it. And during COVID specifically, when most all the tourists and expats had sort of left, it was really, really quiet there. Nowadays it's so busy. I wouldn't even recognize the place, but at that point in time it was really remote, but it was this perfect like little community where I knew everybody and I had that perfect balance of community that was like so easy to access in a very remote, beautiful place where I woke up in the morning, I would take my surfboard, walk to the beach, to the break, go for a surf, see all my friends, hang out, have a coffee after, go home, hermit, not have to like bother with anyone, be able to just go for walks, ride my bike into the town. It was so slow. It was so simple. It was so nurturing in so many ways. And then the second place would be Portugal, where I also feel like I get a lot of that same, especially in Ericeira, which is a little surf town north of Lisbon. And it's cool, hip, like, has the surf culture vibe. And it also feels just so spacious. And everywhere that I've lived, I've been like, just any direction that I walk from where I'm staying is like, I find these giant fields and hiking trails, and you can just get lost in nature so easily. There's cliffs and ocean. And I'm so often on these transition points of environments where I'm like standing on the edge. Like I went for a walk one day. It was like a 40-minute little stroll. And all of a sudden I come to this like massive like mountain peak, and there's this old, I mean, it must be 500 years old, like an old fort. And it's all like walled in with these old cement walls on the top of this like peak. And I don't think anyone's living there anymore. There's still like a house there, but there's farm animals. And so one of the neighbors clearly comes and like takes care of it. But me and my partner went and we like jumped over the fence and we're just like walking around, and you can still see the ocean, one of the most famous surf breaks in Portugal, like just off in the distance. And walking around, there's cows and there's sheep, and it's like the most beautiful, serene, majestic kind of like dichotomy of environments.
Wow, yeah, you really are feeling much better when you're really close to nature. I mean, I guess that's true for a lot of people, but I do also know a lot of people right then fit really well in an urban environment.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit like the urban environment gets a bad rap in the wellness sphere. Like everyone's like, oh, we need to, detox from, and yet there are a lot of people that do, I feel, really well also in that kind of environments, and like power to them.
This is what I love about human design. Well, this is one of the 100 million things I love about it, but to be able to just point out that difference, or that like, because again, the wellness industry will just say that everybody needs to be out barefoot in nature, like in these perfect wholesome environments, when actually, if we look at someone's blueprint and their mechanics, they may have genetically evolved to thrive best in an urban environment. And so again, if you just tell someone and you just listen to the wellness industry and you take someone who's meant to be in an urban environment and you force them into a super isolated mountain town, they're going to wither. And this is what's actually, environment is so important, and it doesn't become as important until after your Saturn return. But a lot of people will notice that they start to become way more sensitive in their 30s, because you think about it, it's like your environment is food. It's what's feeding your energetic body. The energy around you affects the energy within you, right? And if we're not feeding ourselves the right food, how can we possibly expect our bodies to be able to operate in the way that they're meant to operate?
Yeah, yeah. And isn't it, I think at the core of it, I think what's crazy is that, or maybe what's common about the experience is that everyone seems to be on a kind of search for, the answer to the question, what is it for me? What feels really aligned for me? In combination with, can I allow myself to accept that this is, this is what feels good for me? So whether that looks like something someone's trying to sell to you or not, like, can we really cut out the noise independent from which area of life it's coming? So sometimes I feel that in the wellness industry specifically, what we've done is we've just replaced one kind of pressure with a second kind of pressure, with a new kind of pressure. So suddenly you're not like enlightened enough and you're not spiritual enough. You're not, not enough green juices and whatever it is. Like, and so we've kind of escaped, we think we've escaped hustle culture only to kind of replace that culture with a new kind of culture that works in the exact same way. And I think, yeah, that's really cool about human design, or also just these kind of really individual journeys. There's the still similar thing in a way in psychotherapy, where there's one stream in psychotherapy or even just coaching where they say, well, we need to find individualized solutions for people, which means, yes, we have tools, and yes, we have theories and baselines and like research and, evidence-based, whatever. And yet we need to really find individual answers for the individual person. And that might not look like what you'd expect. And that's okay, because it's the version or the solution that best fits that individual. And the fact that we are so far removed from an understanding of what it is that we need to thrive and what that looks like and what that feels like, and how can I double check like whether or not that's just some sort of conditioning talking, and whether or not that's, my parents, society, social media, my community, my friends, or is it really my own truth, and how do I distinguish it? And I think that's at the core, in a way, of these journeys and questions, the fact that you can allow yourself to find your own answer, and then your life looks like yours, it feels like yours, and it might look completely different from whatever part of society is trying to tell you what it should look like. And just, the kind of releasing the need to have some sort of religion telling you the answer, right? And that's so difficult, I feel.
Yeah, it's so true. And yeah, and just going back to what you shared before about just the wellness industry and stuff, it's like conditioning is conditioning. And it doesn't matter where it comes from, right? It's outside of ourselves. It's external. It's not us. And Ra Uru Hu, the creator of human design, for lack of a better word, he always says that the deconditioning process takes 7 years. And I remember hearing that when I first came across human design and just being like, no, I'm not that far off anyways. So I'm sure like I'm probably closer than that. And now that I'm 7 years down the line, I could not echo that any stronger or any further, because we have no idea just how powerful the mind is, particularly the not self mind, right? The mind that is fed from and driven by our conditioning. And it is not as simple. Like, you cannot tell someone who has been living by their mind their entire lives to oh, you just need to listen to your body. Oh, you just need to follow your intuition. It's decades worth of reprogramming that has to be done. And it takes so much more time than our not self mind wants to believe. Because again, as we are conditioned, it's like we just want the quick fix. We just want like the instant dopamine. We just want to feel better now. And the hard, sad truth is it is a arduous process, and it really has to require stripping away layers. And yes, there are tools that can help us get there a little bit faster. And I know that you have a couple of those tools in your toolkit, which we'll get into in a bit. But this might be a nice segue as well to kind of talk to your journey a little bit more, because I mean, I think I looked back at our messages. I think it was 2022 when we were first introduced. And in typical fourth line fashion, it came through our network, through our lovely dear friend Kahena, who has also been on the podcast last year.
So cool.
And she connected us. And that was your kind of first intro to human design, if I remember correctly, right? But maybe just speak to a little bit like where you were at that point in your life, and what sort of drew you to wanting to explore this more.
I remember in 2022, I was again, after the pandemic, I was again newly in an employment situation. So I had I had started my own business in 2019. I had reduced all my employment capacity. I was working in corporate. I had reduced that to a minimum, and then I quit. And then during the pandemic, I started working again. Someone, in the community, I started working again with a good friend of mine. He hired me in the company where he was working at. And that kind of percentage and capacity grew. And over time, I kind of found myself in a similar situation like before, like my own practice had to take a backseat. And that was 2022. From a business side of things, I remember thinking, I'm again on this classical, traditional career trajectory where they're going to tell me, well, if you follow this path, you're going to end up in that C-level position or whatever it was, and it felt so misaligned. I knew already back then that it wasn't for me, but I also really liked to work with this friend of mine. And then him and I had, a really good dynamic work-wise. And I remember on the private side of things, I had finally convinced my partner to move to the city. We had been living in a kind of suburban in his place, in his house. And I just felt like after the pandemic, I was like, I feel like my life's already what it will look like when I'm retired, but I'm like 30, like right? Like my early 30s. And I felt like, what are we doing? Like we should be, I don't know, trying out new things and be in a little bit more dynamic kind of environment, and not with my like house and my partner and my garage and our cars and like all that kind of stuff. And the house felt way too big for two people. And I had a hard time convincing him at the beginning. And in 2022, he agreed to kind of tiptoe and test out just temporary living in Zurich, in the city. And we had found an apartment that we could rent just for a limited amount of time. And yeah, it was this really positive time where I felt, okay, on a private side of things, he's kind of starting to like it. And some people were like, how did you convince him to, change his mind? But I felt that we had really reached also in our relationship a kind of new dynamic, because we were living a new situation. It brought a lot of positive energy in our life, and that kind of gave me also the backbone in a way to address the maybe business side of things, and also talk to him. And also he told me, well, you're not really following through with what you had told yourself, which is doing what you love to do. You're again just working in a way with someone that, yes, you really like and you enjoy working with, but in a situation, a company, and whatever work situation that is not fully aligned with where you want to go to and where you want to be at. And And I just struggled to allow myself to let go of that comfort because I come from a degree in management and economics at the University of Zurich. And that decision was already a kind of misguided decision because what I was really interested in already back then when I was 19 was psychology. Um, my father is a couples and sex therapist or has been all his life. And I was kind of like, no, I'm not going to follow in his footsteps. I'm going to do my own thing, whatever. And so the rebellious thing was to study a super traditional, the rebellious thing was to, he's this kind of hippie. And so to me, it was like, fuck that. I'm going to do my own thing and I'm going to do something that, is going to make me successful, whatever I thought when I was 19. So I finished this degree and then ended up in HR and then ended up in change management. So ended up in these very human oriented, messy, in the messiness of things, business side, still, and yet it didn't really feel, I was not having fun, let's say. I was still kind of feeling I was just delivering KPIs in a way. And so coming from that, what came with that, I guess, was a huge financial security. It was so comfortable to just start with, I was 23 or something, and then kind of go in this salary trajectory, and then working in HR, you also have full transparency of what everyone else on the market is earning. So I had no issue, the typical female issue, let's say, of not really knowing how to negotiate a salary. I didn't have that because I had transparency. So I was like, well, I don't know. I guess that person's earning that. So I guess I'm earning that too. Right. And so I didn't really hold back in that sense. I didn't have to because it was kind of handed to me. But it was just a golden cage to a certain degree. And it was hard for me, again, in 2022, it was hard for me to realize, well, I fell into my own trap again, the pandemic, and then the kind of need for more stability and maybe more safe income. And we had spent a week on a sailing yacht during just going sailing in Spain, in Catalonia. And during that week, I remember my boyfriend telling me, you need to, we got a little bit of perspective and you need to change something. And with this positive energy of our personal situation, I realized, well, I need some help, right? I do know what I have to do, and yet why can I not follow through with it? Like, why do I feel so blocked and stuck in that kind of way? And so I was not even really considering doing a coaching like consciously. I was not thinking, okay, I need to get myself a coach, or like I need to explore human design, and as you said, it was just like, I don't know, me seeing Karina post something, coming across your profile, the connection between us, I guess, kind of resonating, the similarities, the parallels, and then kind of seeing that, oh, okay, that's interesting. That's a new thing that maybe I had heard of, but hadn't really explored. And maybe it's going to give me some answers. It's going to give me some answers as to why does it feel so hard? And why does my intellectual conviction that, look at me, I'm so privileged, like I have the freedom to choose and I have the ability to create that life that feels more aligned for me. Like, why does it still feel so hard? My parents were not expecting me to. Like, there was no pressure from my parents' side. There was no pressure from my friend's side. There was actually what I felt, almost no pressure at all to do anything other than I wanted to do. And yet, why did it feel so sticky? Right. And
Yeah.
I remember one of my first questions was like, why is this not easier? Like, what do I have to understand about this? And I guess it's also the biggest thing that I took away from those sessions with you was the full allowance, in my case, to be multi-passionate, to change my mind constantly and continuously, to go from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, and kind of follow just whatever opportunity comes my way and not really think about how this might fit into some sort of trajectory that makes sense, into some sort of narrative. but actually, and just, kind of zoom out a little bit and just filter out the voices that tell me, oh, you're being flaky, or you can never commit to anything, or this is inconsistent. Or one friend, this friend that I used to work with, told me, you're only consistent in your inconsistencies. And I took it, as like some sort of joke, a little bit of a joke, but an insult, a little bit like an insulting kind of, you're never really consistent. And the sessions with you gave me that allowance to say, wait a second, I'm not supposed to be. This is not what I'm here to do. And at least that kind of voice in my head that told me that you can't do that. Like it's that's just, it's kind of unattractive if people cannot rely on you, blah blah blah. That kind of voice was silenced back then, I remember. Yeah. So that was a really cool thing of, okay, on an individual level, there's an individual solution for me. As you said, like the human design is different for everyone. And yet there's also some sort of allowance to say, okay, as a manifesting generator, this is what I'm here, like this is just gonna continue. And it's good that it is like that. It's not something that I should be fighting. And since then, I've changed my mind. Every couple of months, I change my mind about stuff, and I'm always like, fuck, there's no solution for this. And then a couple of weeks later, I'm like, I have a solution for this. I found a new way, right? And so that's amazing to see. Yeah.
Yeah, the surrender and just being able to like allow and trust that again, the answers will come, the new direction will come, that like you have to jump sometimes before knowing what you're jumping toward. And I love what you shared about just, again, that like radical permission. And from your lens, like what did that kind of unlock for you, and how did things sort of change from there?
It was several things. I think one thing that is really important for me also in my work as a coach is I do really trust more that something will figure itself out somehow, that there's always some sort of new solution that I can find to find stability, the degree of stability that I need in my life. And I don't have to know it beforehand. It's a little bit what you say, you can jump, is meaning I can figure it out 50% and then do it. I don't have to figure it out 100%. I can think, okay, the next 2 to 3 months could look like this, and that's enough. That's good enough. Knowing that gives me also a huge ability to be some sort of carrier and representative of hope for my clients, right? Because it's not just that I have some sort of intellectual understanding of, you just trust the universe. It's not that. Just trust that everything will turn out right. Even more so working with people that sometimes lack a fundamental primal feeling of trust, right? So telling them just trust the process, like it's not gonna help, not gonna be helpful at all. And yet being some sort of example, real life example, when they tell me this cannot work, this will never work, it can't. Telling them, well, that's really generally just a story you tell yourself, and it is true. It is true because it's your story. So it is true. And yet you can change the story and make another story the truth. And I do know, not just because, I don't know, kind of some sort of textbook, methodological, academic knowledge, but really I can stand for it wholeheartedly. Again, I'm talking about people who are, let's say, broadly speaking, I don't know, psychologically healthy, or let's say they can figure stuff out for themselves right now. They're not 100% blocked and are not getting up in the morning, right? Because I feel that it's also important to distinguish between people that are at the brink between life and death, or they're just chronically unhappy, living, but kind of dead inside. And that's not necessarily the safe situation. So for me, that's one thing, that trust, and also the kind of credibility that it has opened up for me, that yes, you can change things. You actually can. And you do not have to, you can approach things unfinished. You don't have to be finished. You don't have to be done. You don't have to be ready. you can do it unsure, uncertain. You can, and it actually can turn out for the better, which maybe means you will have a waitress job for a couple of weeks and or month, and maybe means you will work out, at some sort of shitty paid job in some capacity. But if it brings you joy and community and more people that you really love to see every day, for example, or for a season or whatever it is, why wouldn't you do that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing. Um, that is also helping me whenever I hit those kind of roadblocks again.
And what does your like that sacral intuitive gut feeling feel like for you?
That's really hard to say. I think it's really it's when you say you go shopping and you see something you like and then you think I'm gonna sleep on it and then you cannot stop obsessing about it and it just feels so like I really really want it, and you do not feel like you took that decision from a place of boredom or just not knowing what to do with your day, so you just bought something but that you don't actually need, and that's why let's sleep on it. And I feel my gut feeling is that kind of feeling of I know it it's, and then let me wait it out, let me, like as you always say, let me kind of dive and wait out the waves of the emotion and of the peak, and let me wait it out, let me consider it for a couple of days. But it's a kind of deep rooted conviction of no or yes, this is amazing, or no, this is not going to go well. And it's not a worry, it's not a rumination, or it's not some sort of, oh, what if it doesn't do, what if it, right? And that's more, to me, that's more fear, and that's more mental. It feels more mental and like it's consuming my thoughts, whereas the other thing is more a feeling in my center that I'm like, I can also just not take a decision right now and reconsider it tomorrow. It's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
The decision is already taken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's that perfect example of, the emotional authority for a generator, a manifesting generator, where it's like the knowing it still lives in your, like that sacral, that fire center within you. And then it's the feeling of like over time, it just doesn't go away. That secondary verification process. I'm excited about it now. And if I sleep on it, I'm still going to be excited about it. And over time, I still feel that fire. And I think that was perfectly described. And I guess on the contrast to that, because like you said, there have been many times in your life where you forced yourself into a certain identity or a certain direction because that's what your mind told you needed for financial stability or to follow through with the thing that you thought you were supposed to follow through with. So in contrast to situations like that, like what does that sort of like resistance feel like for you in your body when you are forcing something or pushing in the wrong direction? Because I think that's what so many people come to me for, and I think probably a lot of your clients as well, where they're just in that state of perpetual resistance trying to push a boulder up a hill when actually the answer is to just let the boulder go and like go a completely different direction. So what are those kind of cues or signals like for you?
It can go in different directions. One is when I feel like I somehow kind of detach from it all, and it's almost as if I become numb, or there's some sort of distance between me and the world, and I'm just functioning, and I know deep down that I'm kind of not there and not really present. I get this kind of feeling that I think nobody really knows me or something like that, because I feel so far removed from what I'm doing. And and obviously this also kind of is very easy in that position to go, this is not right, like it doesn't really feel like it's something that life is not supposed to feel like that all the time. And I get frustrated really easily in that kind of space. um it's almost as if usually when life just flows in the kind of right direction, I'm aligned with where it's going, I am really chill. I'm a really chill person. I can handle things. It's not to say that I am not sensitive. I am really sensitive, but generally speaking, even or for most in the business environment, I'm just really chill. I kind of go like, okay, let's find a solution for that, pragmatic kind of approach. And I'm really laid back. And even if things go wrong, I can, or are stressful, I can kind of go like, well, we'll find a solution, or thank you for your feedback, or thank you for your criticism, and be fine. And when I feel that I cannot anymore, when I get super frustrated and I get like quick in my reaction and um just angry and mad, at people for maybe just the littlest, like the smallest things, that's also where I feel, okay, I'm somehow frustrated and flustered, and there's something not gearing well in that situation. It's obviously not a situation that feels aligned for me. And again, the question there is always, I have to also always wait it out a little bit, right? And see if a week or 2 or 3 later, it still really feels that bad, so to say. And that usually feeds into this knowing. If it's just, I don't know, I have a period or PMS or whatever it was, like it was some sort of reason that had nothing to do with the topic at hand, or there's really something wrong in how I'm handling this. And then it kind of grows into this knowing that it's like, no, I I have to change something because it feels misaligned. I think the difference compared to the past is that I do this really quickly now. I realize really quickly, and then I'm like, okay, solution. My like problem solving mode. What can I change? What can I do? And I don't wait it out and just kind of accept anymore. Those, again, the narrative of sometimes things are hard. So, it's not always supposed to be easy. Like those are the narratives that I told myself. And now I'm like, fuck it. No, yes, it should kind of always, like most of the time feel really easy. Even the hard stuff feels kind of easy. And then it's right. Then it feels I don't have to, I can kind of take the easiest way. And if people say, well, that's not the best way because the way that's worth the most is the hard one. No. Let me just take the easiest way. And that usually turns out to be the kind of the right way of doing things, where again, even hard things, even hard decision and like difficult times feel right, feel easy, feel like they make sense in a way.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's so good. It's all about, again, rewriting those stories. And because that's what they are, stories, right? And what would you say is your process for doing that, for identifying and then being able to actually rewrite those narratives, those subconscious beliefs and such? Like what's in your toolbox?
So it's interesting because the two things next to just, in a way, let's say talking therapy, right? Like next to just some sort of talking therapy that I do is writing and hypnotherapy inspired work. And I don't use it that often anymore for myself. I only use it, I mean, I still write regularly, but I don't use hypnotherapy so often anymore for myself, but I used to really big on it, even for myself. Which and what is it? So the written word, in a way, feels to me like it allows you to several things, to just allow yourself to kind of open your mind and let your thoughts flow wherever, and then see what kind of gold nuggets you'll find there that are important to you to know in retrospect, because you can reread yourself. And I always say you can kind of be your own client, like the client and the therapist. You can kind of be your own therapist. Or even clients that say, I hate to write and I hate to read. I'm so slow and I have this like thing that I wasn't good at it, etc. Then I'm like, okay, then voice messages. Promise you'll get over the fact that your voice sounds strange, and just voice message yourself, just the practice of really laying it out there. And in the written case, slow down and kind of just let your thoughts flow and pen on paper, and then revisit them maybe even a week later or a month later. That to me is super helpful to make sense of the noise and and the voice that is mine. And also to put perspective to things. So to realize, when you do that consistently, you realize the things that mattered a year ago oftentimes don't matter anymore that much. Like 90% of the things that were absolutely catastrophically, whatever, emotionally draining to you or whatever. A year later, a lot has changed. I used to write emails to myself that will be sent only in the future. Again, for the same reason, kind of diary entries to read a year or 3 or 5 later. And that puts tremendous perspective to things. And you do, so the result of it was that I ask myself every time, in a year of now, does this still matter? Like, whether I do A or B, is it really that important? My future self, what is it going to tell me, right? And that's also where hypnotherapy for me came into that, which is basically a combination between getting yourself in a really calm and relaxed state so that you're more open to any kind of visions and visuals and suggestions that might come in. I'm not talking about hypnosis just because people kind of connect. They have an idea of what this is, and they think what it is I control your mind. And it's not. It's actually I'm trying to create a space where your mind cannot control you that much. That's what we're doing, right? And so hypnotherapy, or just some kind of hypnotherapy inspired maybe journaling practices, have allowed me to really deep dive and create visual images of, for example, my inner home, my inner soul space, whatever that looks like, and see what I find there and what kind of wisdom I find there, coming from the idea that there's several different parts of me that sometimes are at war with each other. And instead of fighting them and trying to silence them, or instead of trying to figure out which one's right, and etc., it's really more about inviting them all so they have a platform to speak freely and express whatever they're here to express. And that kind of work, and that kind of, in a way, getting you really meeting yourself and really coming home to yourself in that sense, has allowed me to create different versions of myself that now feel really real. And that's what I said before, right? That I can ask myself, well, the Laura that is on the other side of that mountain, what is she going to tell me? Like, if I could talk to her now, what is she going to tell me? And it's the things that I need to hear. And the beautiful thing of writing and also these kind of meditation techniques is I can tell myself. And as the mind cannot distinguish between, a dream or reality in that sense, so they cannot distinguish between the actual whatever materialistic truth or something that I'm just telling myself. With time, I actually create these kind of figures in my life that feel viscerally real to me, right? They're inside of me, they're here. And that has allowed me to, I don't know, whenever I'm trash talking myself, I think of like the small me, and she is here, right? It's not just some sort of abstract concept of an inner child. It's her. I see her, I know her, and she doesn't like, when I trash talk myself, she's kind of like, what? She doesn't like that. And then I feel bad for talking myself this way. And that kind of thing that instantly, whenever I'm really hard on myself, I'm like, wait a second, I'm being hard on this vulnerable, sensitive child that I still am, that I am whenever someone comes really close, whenever someone, whenever I'm in a relationship, whenever I fall in love, whenever I'm vulnerable, I am still that child. I am still scared, and all these kind of things. And so that I think when with the time you can create that, and use it in your day-to-day life so that emotional times and difficult times still feel emotional and difficult. And you learn to allow yourself to feel whatever needs to be felt. And that makes, in the big scheme of things incredibly easier, because you're not trying to, just put a band-aid on it or avoid it or whatever. And it doesn't mean you're escaping, the human experience, as I always say. You don't escape it. And that's not what you're supposed to do anyway. It's just that you're allowing yourself to be and feel and you have these kind of self sense of safety within yourself. Yes. So journaling, hypnotherapy, guided meditation, relaxation, nervous system regulation, all these kind of things have helped me tremendously, and are also the things that I use whenever I have people that are really intellectual, for example, because they can, they can talk their way, rationalize their way out of every situation, and their mind is so strong. It's so strong. So we need to find other ways to access, kind of go around,
Yeah.
their strong mind.
Yeah, I can relate to that massively. I talked about this in the last podcast episode, and how I used to be a competitive diver, and the nature of a sport like that, where I never thought about this until very recently, but it was like I spent a good third of my life like sharpening the blade of it's like our minds already don't need any more help being overly controlling and overly in charge, which again, they're not designed to be. And I realized, like, getting into the wellness space and going through a lot of this like healing work, a lot of it it's been really hard for me to fully sink into a lot of experiences, because my mind, so logical, so rational, like my human design chart shows it, the way that I grew up, my conditioning, all just like fed into this like resilient and strong mind. And a lot of practices, a lot of things were really hard for me to get into because I just couldn't get out of that space. And so I've just noticed it's taken a lot of time, and it's also taken finding the right practices. Because it's
Yeah. And as you say, you gotta find the right practices for you. You gotta find the thing that feels right, pleasurable, and joyful, or like even when you are flooded with emotion, where you feel, no, I still feel like I want to do this again, right? I want to go there again. I want to go to this place again, because that's the things that you will consistently do. And as with everything, as with fitness and nutrition and relationships and everything, it's consistency is key. You do these little things every day, whatever, or on a regular basis, and that's what your life is gonna be built off. That's what has an impact on you. So yeah, you got to find what works for you and what feels like something you can access and can tap into. And many people kind of tiptoe a little bit, or get their toes into the whole like writing and hypnotherapy inspired sessions, and are kind of like, nah, not for me. And that's fine. That's cool. Like, it's not going to be for everyone. Yet I do think there's some sort of practice that allows you to do exactly what you just said. Just really tap out of your mind and let this kind of body, heart, soul, you know, experience take control, and lead from there and go from there.
totally. Yeah, I love everything. I mean, everything you just shared. There's so much detail and so much wisdom there. And I think that a lot of people listening are going to gain a lot of value, and likely be a bit inspired to pick up the pen again and get back to their journals, or again, maybe explore something like hypnotherapy if they haven't yet. And I guess that's, one topic that I think can sometimes be intimidating, and similar to you said, because people have a lot of ideas about like hypnosis or like what that means. And so what would you say to people who are curious about something in a practice like hypnotherapy, and how could they go about exploring it, or even finding the right practitioners? Or
I think one thing they should look out for is, when also looking for the right practitioner, is whether or not they feel safe doing it. Means whether or not they feel that they go as deep as they can that given day, that moment in time. Right? So this is really not about me deciding where you're going to end up at. What I'm trying to build is an offering that you can lean into and see what you find there. And I always tell people beforehand, I always do some sort of grounding exercises. I always say, every class, I say that, and I repeat it consistently to the people that have heard it 100 times. Feel free to get up, open your eyes, get up, move in the space, remove yourself from the space, okay? Feel free to call for my help. I am there. Do not kind of feel like, oh, I'm doing this wrong. There is no wrong way of doing this. It's really something that you can just use for yourself. And if something feels uncomfortable, change it, right? And I feel that's the thing, that the good practitioners have a sense of whether or not they can still like push a little bit, or when in doubt, I always hold back. When in doubt, I hold back. When I cannot communicate with the person, because for example, it's a group environment, there's like 50 people laying around me and I have a microphone, then I cannot interact with the individual. I say beforehand, you need to be able to take care of yourself. You need to have responsibility for yourself. I don't know where you're at. I don't know, for example, if there's people among those people that are actually traumatized to a high degree that I might trigger with something I say. So please feel free to leave anytime. And I say this, and then sometimes afterwards people tell me, well, it wasn't that intense what you did. Or because I emphasize this, and it kind of makes them go like, oh my God, I don't know where I'm going to end up on. And the thing is that, well, you ended up exactly at where you guided yourself to, right? If I tell you, look around and you see beautiful nature, and what you see is, I don't know, your own house, then that's great. Just ignore what I'm saying and go your own way, because I'm just trying to give some sort of inspiration. And I more and more also through the years, I've started to create the kind of visual experience less and just say, look around. What do you see? What do you smell? What do you hear? Do you have shoes on, or are you barefoot? Walk around. What does the floor feel like? How do you feel in that space? Is there any place else that you would feel more comfortable? Go there, change it. Yeah, right. And this gives them the advocacy and the kind of power to do that. And when before I was more shaping, in a way, more visually shaping where they would end up at, now I'm more kind of letting them lead. And also because I have experienced that it gives them more a higher degree of freedom and safety, because the client can just go wherever she or he wants to go at in this exact moment. And it's not me pushing, and you don't have to cry, and it doesn't have to be cathartic, and all these kind of ideas of what it should be like. It can be just relaxing. It's just a new experience. And so sometimes I completely skip the hypnosis or hypnotherapy kind of, description. Yeah. And I just say it's a guided meditation. Because at the end of the day, that's what it is, right? I'm trying to down regulate. We do some breathing exercises, we ground, and we tap into the inner world, and we see what we find there. And I'm guiding you through it, and I'm trying to pull you a little bit deeper, maybe a little bit deeper. And with some repetition and some counting, there's some techniques that could be useful. But that's it. And I'm not trying to tell you, and now you get up and you feel like you're a chicken, or whatever else people think that we'll be doing. And the bad experiences, the re-traumatizing experiences people have had, are usually in situations where they felt like they are stuck, right? That kind of feeling of, I suddenly felt like I can't move, I can't breathe, there's no one there that can help me. And then nobody realizing that this is happening. And when I have 6 people, I can realize. When I have 10 people, I can still hold the space. When there's 20, I need at least someone in addition to me. When there's 50, I cannot, by the life of me, guarantee that I see everyone. And so I need them to step out if they feel that this is something that would not feel good for them. Yeah, so that's that. I think the bottom line is, you're still in control. You're still in control. I am not mind controlling you. And it's more of an experience and an invitation than anything else. And it's the repetition usually that really is the magic behind it. It's not that one time journey that you do and then you never do it again. That is probably, I mean, sometimes it happens, but the kind of breakthrough is just from one time. But yeah.
Yeah. I love what you said about the way that you intro the sessions, because I very similarly, like my practice or medicine that I use for the reprogramming or for the unblocking is a specific type of breath work, 9D breath work, which I've spoken a lot about on this podcast. And always when we're going into sessions and we're leading them, it's usually myself and my co-facilitator, Ruby. And we always do sometimes it can feel a bit drawn out, these introductions, but I find, again, because most people that are coming to us have these same struggles of being so caught up in here and up in the mind, and being able to prepare the mind with what to expect so that when they hit those points of discomfort, especially in a practice like breath work, where again, it's called breath work for a reason, especially these more activating, upregulating breathing styles. Like, it's work, it's intense, it's not easy. Your body's going to feel resistance, and your mind, even more so, is going to feel resistance. So if I can prepare you for that resistance and to understand how to approach that resistance, and what I always say as well is like, the resistance that you experience going into a breathwork session or any sort of experience like this is the same resistance you experience from your mind anytime you're about to try something new or step out of your comfort zone, right? And your mind is going to give you any excuse that it can find to take you out of the experience. So in the context of breath work, right, your mind is going to say, oh, my hands are tingling, this doesn't feel good, or my mouth is dry, I need to get some water, or this is hard, maybe I don't think I can do this for an entire hour. And all of those are just stories, and it has no connection to what you're actually experiencing in your body. It's just your mind's way of trying to stay safe, and the mind perceives safety with control. So the mind is going to try to stay in control, even when we're doing these practices like hypnosis or like breath work, that we're trying to shut off the mind so that our body can lead. And so I always find the more that I can prepare people for that resistance, even though some people won't actually experience any resistance, they'll drop right in. But for most people, that resistance is there. And if they know and they can identify and point to, oh, this is that resistance, what do I need to do? Focus on the next breath, focus on the next breath, focus on the next breath. And no matter what, every time that resistance diminishes and the body will take over. But it is
absolutely
facilitators to be able, that's part of holding space, right? It's being able to provide a container, and the word container and holding space is used so often, but it's like, imagine you have a bunch of like little lambs and they're all just out free in a pasture, and that could be, for a little lamb, that's going to feel very unsafe. Like, there's danger around every corner. You don't know where the wolves are going to be. Like, they might get lost. They don't know where their mom is, right? But the moment you have someone who can, like, you have the dog, the sheepdog, who can come and herd them or put them back into their little pen, they're going to feel a lot more safe if they know that there's like a container around them that they can trust, and that they're going to be safe, and that no danger is going to come in. And that's what we have to be able to provide. And unfortunately, in the world today, where it's like anyone and their mother can be a self-proclaimed coach, healer, guide, mentor, whatever, without the real actual integration and embodiment, unfortunately, a lot of these containers, with air quotes, are put together, but they're holes in the fence.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can so just emphasize what you just said about the fact that I have told you that I'm currently doing my master's degree in psychology because I want to be a licensed psychotherapist. And so one of the reasons was also just realizing that there's so many people that are not just like you and me, trying to find better answers to their questions and just trying to live a more aligned life, but they're really grappling with clinical depression and anxiety that is impacting their life on a daily basis, so they cannot leave their homes anymore. And for those people, it's really important to learn that they can, kind of try to stretch it a little bit, and then yet really maybe react even earlier than they normally would, and say, okay, no, this doesn't feel good right now, and then maybe try again a day later. Because usually what they are really good at is stretching it way too far, right? Like going way, way, way over their limits and boundaries. And so in this kind of practice, I think it's really important to, on one hand, kind of, have that container and give that opportunity for people to go beyond what their just monkey mind is telling them, that this is now a limit and they cannot continue. But at the same time, also really honor the limits and boundaries that people have, even more so when they are really, really unwell. So to offer something that they can take for themselves and see how far they want to go with it, and then maybe leave it be. And that's fine, and that's good enough. And then it's not, well, you didn't push yourself enough, right? You didn't really allow yourself for your body to take over, or whatever the narrative could be. And I feel that's one of the things that is so dangerous about the fact that anyone could be a coach, is that oftentimes they're just pushing people. They're pushing people really far, and they're doing that with the narrative of trust me. Trust me. You cannot maybe trust yourself, but trust me, because I'm the guru, I'm here, and I'm going to hold this for you. And that's so dangerous, because it's just reiterating, perpetuating the same kind of cycle that got them sick in the first place, or at least part of it. That's one of the reasons. And they need to learn the contrary. They need to learn to be able to say, no, I don't want to do this. I'm not going to do this, right? I just doesn't feel good right now. So no. And that's a very fine line to understand, okay, what kind of people am I working with now? What kind of container is this? What kind of environment is this? Can I trust that they can take responsibility for themselves in that sense? Or am I just exploiting their vulnerabilities and their weaknesses in a way? And to me, I've seen so many situations where I felt this does not, the Tony Robbins kind of situations, where I'm just like, this isn't right. This isn't right. And it's also not right to profit off to that kind of immense degree and scale. And I'm not saying anyone, like, I love for people to be billionaires, and please be rich with whatever you want to do, and what your your heart lies on. And really, you don't be poor and just like barely getting by. And I have nothing against it. I have nothing against it for me, for anyone. But profiting off of people's fears and weaknesses and vulnerabilities in that way, and just pushing, doesn't sit right with me at all. The kind of toxic positivity of it doesn't sit right with me at all. They just think mindset your way out of whatever problem that you might have. And so that's why I was like, no, I want to also be able to work with clinically unhealthy people, like people that are really struggling right now, that will have a little breakthrough just when they are able to say no. And that's it. Like, that's a huge breakthrough, right? And might allow them to be able to say, no, I don't want this. And so to maybe reach a point again where they feel a little bit more stable, so they can actually get up in the morning, so they can face life, and they can choose living. And that's just a completely different ballgame in a way, right? And so, yeah, to me, this is really important, and that's also why I decided to also wanting to go down that more clinically oriented path.
Well, it's super exciting. How much more time do you have left in your studies?
Endless. I have another 1.5 years at least until my master's degree, and then I have 4 years of psychotherapy school. But during those 4 years, I can already work partially as a psychotherapist. And as I come from this kind of coaching background, I will not leave it. I will not just be a psychotherapist 100% in the most traditional sense. I will for sure blend together all these kind of different things.
Yeah.
So I guess
to, it's
Yeah.
taking multi-passionate energy. Like that's the other thing with business. When you become your own business, when you are your brand, when you are an entrepreneur, there's no separation. You have to find
No.
a way to make your business like work and synthesize with your energies, because it's an extension of you. So it has to be this multi-passionate sort of expression of psychotherapy and coaching and journaling and healing work and all of that.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
that being said, is
absolutely.
there anything, obviously, like schooling and all of that is super exciting, but what else is lighting you up at the moment? Are there any new projects, things that you're excited about coming up?
Well, we do have a little project thing.
Wow, Erin, that was so smooth. How you just slid that right in there.
Yeah, it was so cool for me to realize last time that we talked that you were coming to Zurich.
I was really excited because I guess people don't know this, but we've never met, right? We've never met in real life. And so this whole like 3 years connection has just played out virtually. And there were little chances that we had, and maybe I might come to your retreat, and then I didn't manage, etc. So I was really excited to hear, okay, you're coming to Zurich and we'll spend at least a month here. And that was the perfect opportunity to say, well, we should totally get together and create a little something together. So combine forces of somehow figuring out the why, right? Like, why am I like this? What is my design? What is the underlying stream of energy that is influencing the way that I work? And then also maybe the question, why do I feel stuck in that kind of sense? Why does that feel so misaligned for me? And then the question of how can I change it? And then that's where journaling and hypnotherapy comes in as a means to at least offer one sort of chance to try to start rewriting that stories.
Yeah,
So we'll be
that's it.
doing that.
Yes, a little combination, a little human design and hypnotherapy collaboration. And this is something that's true with every program that I create, every collaboration that I'm a part of follows this sort of mold where it's like we have to first lead with this idea of who are we? Understanding how we're designed, how we're energetically made up, how we're designed to move around in the world. But it cannot just stop there. We then have to do that looking at like, what is blocking us? What stories are we telling ourselves? What limitations do we have? What old traumas, what old baggage are we carrying that's keeping us, right, stuck up in the mind, stuck up in our conditioning, not allowing us to have the freedom to follow our intuition or to even hear our intuition. So bringing in these sort of somatic or physical or subconscious practices like hypnotherapy are so valuable, because again, we cannot, anything in isolation doesn't fully work with our entire holistic being. And that's really what we need, because you look around, everybody that I come across is stuck in some sort of dynamic in their lives, whether it's work, whether it's a relationship, whether it's just looping similar patterns, and
Exactly.
they don't know how to get out of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's that at the core of it is the question. I recently asked a client, "Are you happy?" And they said, "Well, I'm not unhappy." And then I said, "So you're not happy?" Because, okay, not unhappy is not the same as happy, right? And then they were kind of like, "Well, but there's so much shit going down in the world. How can I sit here with all the privilege I have and say I'm not happy?" And that's so at the core of it, is to say, allow yourself to create a life that feels really great to you. Not all the time in every instant, but generally speaking, feels and looks like yours, like you've chosen it, like you've created it. And then you give from that place, right? From that place of fullness. And yes, in order to be able to do that, it can be helpful to release the patterns that are keeping you stuck and to stop repeating whatever choices you make that are keeping you in a narrative and in a life and in a story that isn't yours, that doesn't feel and look like yours. And yes, you even have that's what you're here for in a way. That's how you're going to create a life of so much abundance that you cannot even help but give, right? And be generous with what you have, because your cup's simply spilling over in a way. And I feel that's the why these practices are so worth so much. And that's also the answer to, but am I even allowed to feel to ask for that kind of happiness for myself? Yes. You're not going to get up, and I told his clients, you're not going to get up and like organize some sort of I don't know, goods to be sent to Gaza when you're in this place of feeling stuck. You're not going to be giving and trying to save the world and children or whatever elsewhere while you're in this place of feeling so stuck. But imagine you're in a place where you feel so full that you cannot even help but just give and give to people and organize yourself and rally and be an activist and, get yourself into whatever resonates with you. And so sitting there and kind of going, I cannot allow myself to be happy because children are dying. That's not that doesn't make anything any better. It's not helpful. Yeah, it's not helpful at all. It's not solving any kind of anything. And so it's your duty almost to be happy.
Many people who have these sort of stories of around like victimhood and around like the evils of the world and around deservingness and such, and the way that they're feeling, even though they're victimizing themselves by saying, I can't be happy because this is happening. There's always going to be something happening that is ugly, right? And you'll find it. Even if you have that belief inside of you, like you're going to find a reason to stay miserable. So that's why it's so important to get to those stories and get to those subconscious beliefs and narratives and rewrite them. And you'll then see that your capacity for joy, pleasure, excitement, like service is untapped, and what you can do with that to actually make a difference on the ugly part of the world, or on the whatever it is that you feel called to, is unmatched.
Yes, you cannot serve from a place of lack. You simply can't. And so filling your own cup in a way is a selfless thing to do, because that's what is going to allow you to serve in a way that doesn't feel like you should, that's what you should be doing, but rather it's just a natural consequence of the fullness that is your life. And so that's why, yes, human design, figuring out the way you work, and then trying to find practices that allow you to change these narratives and rewrite your own history, whether that be, now in our case, journaling, hypnotherapy, talk therapy, breath work, whatever it is,
Yeah, so for anyone who is listening, I mean, if you are Switzerland, Zurich based and are interested in what we're offering, this sort of collaboration, I'll put our contact details in the show notes. And I would say as well, anyone who's listening who's not Switzerland based, what we're doing as well is a virtual offering, this combination, human design and hypnotherapy. And we would be happy to share more about that. And other than that, how can people reach you, get in touch with you if they want to learn more?
So in Zurich live, what I do is that I usually host journaling sessions at a yoga studio called the Soul Space. And the next one is October 12th. It's in combination with Morena, also a good friend of mine. She's hosting a cacao ceremony. So it's a cacao and journaling experience. Been doing that for a little bit more than a year now. And so if you want to sign up for that, it's usually through the yoga studio directly. And then I will also, my social media is Laura Sabina Coaching in Instagram. That's the only channel I have. So for anyone who's like to follow, I will surely be a little bit more present in the upcoming month because of my master's in psychology. And I'm also doing a little internship, just a couple of hours a week, but where I will work with a psychotherapist and support her in her kind of digital content, and then also that combine it with my own offerings And also by popular demand, I'm in the process of recording journaling sessions so that you can actually then virtually buy my classes. So instead of just having to attend them live at the yoga studio where I'm hosting them from time to time, you can put together your own little catalog of topics and find those. And yes, and so the biggest part of my work is actually just in my practice in Zurich. So and there you can contact me on whichever channel. Usually people email me, um, and they can find me online on their lauraeigenmann.ch. And if you just Google my name, you'll find me as well. So yeah, I'd be happy to hear from people. But I think a big part is through Instagram, and because that's the only kind of socials that I have.
Yeah. Perfect. I'll link all this in the show notes. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing your story, all of the wisdom, everything that you offered. And I will see you soon.
Yes, I will see you soon. I'm so excited.